It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I am Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host Smitty. Go follow us on all of our social medias at Around the 412. While you're there, go check us out on YouTube as well. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the videos, and go to the description, whether you're over on YouTube, whether you're over on the listening platforms like Spotify or Apple Podcast. Check out the description. We've got several links in there from some of our sponsors, but our top link is our link. It is year 7 of Rocking Around the 412. It's our Christmas fundraiser that we've done for the past 6 years. We are raising money to be able to provide Christmas in the local 724-412 area codes, as well as partnering with the East Rochester Salvation Army and adopting kids off of their angel tree. If you want to do that and get in participation for that, the deadline for that to get the gifts back for the angel tree is December 9th. Ours is going to be running until mid-December, so a little bit past the December 9th cutoff. But if you want to be able to donate, the link to the GoFundMe is down below. We've been able to raise over $32,000 the first 6 years, help dozens of kids in the local area, and we want to continue to be able to do that. So we need the support of everybody that sees this, listens to this. If you're able to share the GoFundMe, donate to the GoFundMe, every penny that gets donated goes to these kids and these families. We also typically, for the families, any money left over, we try to get a Walmart gift card or something that so they can provide like a holiday dinner or holiday meal of some sort for their family. Also, if you do donate, you're also nominated, and I feel like we don't talk about this enough as we should, maybe to entice some more people. You're nominated for some prizes. You got some Around the 412 prizes, some Pittsburgh sports prizes, some memorabilia, Penguins tickets. You got some good stuff. So go check it out. The GoFundMe is at the top of the description on every show from now until mid-December. But now, Penguins hockey is back. Hockey in general is back. As of recording this, it is Tuesday, October 8th, and the National Hockey League is in full swing yet again. The Penguins have not played yet as of recording, but as of posting this, as of listening to this, the Penguins are either going to be 1-0 or 0-1, but Penguins hockey is back. We just can't talk about that game yet because we don't know. Breaking the fourth wall a little bit.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. This is the episode where we're going to do our predictions and stuff like that. I'm excited about it. Can't believe that we got puck drop at the time of recording this, a little less than 24 hours from now. But again, by the time you guys are watching and listening to this, it's happened. So hopefully we're 1-0. But also the night of recording this, we got hockey going on already. Opening night across the NHL, 3-game slate. Very interested, very intrigued to watch the Utah Hockey Club in their season opener. I'm looking forward to that. I'll be staying up late to at least catch some of that for sure. But let's talk about the Penguins. Also want to preface by saying we do these predictions episode every year. This one's going to be a little bit different, though. We're just doing off the cuff. However we're feeling in the moment is who we're going to pick for all of these things. We didn't do this ahead of time. We're just on the fly going to make some predictions for how the Penguins season and statistically for the players, how things are going to go down. So I'm looking forward to it. Where do you want to start? I'll let you guide the ship.
I feel like we should start with the statistics, so to speak, the kind of like the individual awards. They're not really awards, but individual statistics, and then kind of go from there. Then we could talk more about the team as a whole and get into our prediction as far as their lookout for the season. So we could start with the big one, goals. Who do we think is going to lead the team in goals? Last year, it was Sidney Crosby. He had 42 goals, his third 40-goal season of his career. I feel like Sidney Crosby is a good answer no matter what for any of these statistical ones. But I feel like there's still some opportunity for some guys to lead in some scoring categories. I know like people could be high on Russ this year because he's going to be basically full-time on Sid's right wing. Malkin, he scored 27 goals last year, but if he's paired up with a guy like Michael Bunting for a full season and they have that chemistry, what can that turn into? I myself am just going to go back to Sidney Crosby because it's hard for me to get away from him, knowing what he is playing at, the skill level he still possesses as a 37-year-old player. It's hard for me to imagine anybody surpassing him in goals. I think that there's a few guys that could put up some good numbers. I think that Malkin could crack 30 again. I think even a guy like Michael Bunting over a full season with the Penguins could get up there in goals as well. But Sidney Crosby, to me, just knowing what he can do with the puck, knowing what he can do when he doesn't have the puck and what he's doing or just around the ice, he gets opens from so many areas, so many unique goals as well. He doesn't score the same way twice, it feels like. I just want to I want somebody to push him, but I ultimately feel like it's going to be Sidney Crosby again that leads his team.
Yeah, I'd like to have an outside the box pick here. And to be honest, I mean, like Michael Bunting, I was surprised to see he only had 6 goals in his 13 games here last year, or 21 games here last year. I'm sorry. Because
Felt
that's
like
like
more.
that's what, like a mid-20s pace, I think. Let me see.
Yeah,
Six,
it should be roughly like high. I think it's high 20s.
23
Oh,
goal
okay.
pace is what that is. So, I mean, that obviously would not put him in that category for me. But you look at like a guy like, and we don't know when exactly Brian Russ is going to come back. It doesn't sound like it's going to be too long term. He had 28 goals last year. Now that is, I mean, that's got to be, what kind of pace is that? 28 divided by 62 times 82. Yeah, that's a 37 goal pace. That could put him in that conversation. But ultimately, I'm trying to make a conversation here that I don't think can be had because I think it's Sid. Like Jake Gensel's not on this team anymore. Otherwise, I'd probably say him. I think that Michael Bunting's a nice complimentary piece. I think Brian Russ is still a guy that can pot somewhere between 25 to 30. You mentioned Gino. I think he could get back into that conversation as well. Maybe a guy like Drew O'Connor all of a sudden takes a leap and you're talking about a 15 to 20 goal scorer. Ricardo Rakell's a guy that certainly needs to bounce back and hopefully be in that conversation on the second line as well. But ultimately, I just don't see anybody touching the 35 to 40 range that I think Sid's going to be in.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think that there's a very realistic opportunity for Sidney Crosby to have another 40-goal season this year, especially because of how much offense that he drives for this team alone. And, with the addition of David Quinn, you might expect the power play to get a little bit better. How many points is he going to get from
until
the power
that
play
happens.
itself? Until it happens, we can't say anything. Like it's kind of like a wait and see. You got to prove it. But that being said, if the power play does improve, he led the team in power play points last season. I feel like it's probably going to be a similar scenario where he would get some more points if that power play is getting better on top of itself. That could just lead to more goals and more points in and of itself right there. So, all right.
How about Lars Eller had 15 last year? I would same amount as Rakell.
That's what I mean. Like Lars Eller, to me, I know a lot of people wanted him as a trade option for this summer, and a lot of that probably just has to do with his age and what his cap hit was and what it could have freed up for the Penguins. But to me, Lars Eller did not play bad. From all of the acquisitions from last offseason, he was one of the better ones, and he is someone that I felt very comfortable about bringing back. Like, sure, you want to get someone younger and faster in there. I just don't think he played bad enough to say he needs to be shipped out. I don't think it was like how we felt about Smith, for example. Like I don't think that we felt the same way about those two players. But it felt like the conversation and the narrative around him going into the offseason was like people wanted him out of Pittsburgh. And I'm like, I don't understand why people are so adamant about this because I thought he did fine.
I think, at least for me, the idea of trading Lars Eller was because of him actually being valuable. Like you're looking at the valuable assets that they have, whether it's him or Marcus Pettersson or whatever, and trying to assess where this team is at and thinking, okay, does it make more sense to have these guys on the roster or get the return for them that you can? I'm fine with him being here, but to me, that would have been the reason to trade him, not because I didn't think he was a good player. I think he is one of the better, third line centers that we've seen walk through this door since Nick Bonino. Which we know how important third line centers have been for the Penguins throughout their history, how important it is to them to win a Stanley Cup. It's a real game changer. What's going on, everybody? Smitty from Around the 412, and I just want to take a quick second to give a shout out to our folks at Game Changers. Their logo on the screen right now, right above my microphone. Over 2,000 different designs in their catalog. Luxury heavyweight material. I'm wearing one of their shirts right now. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Head over to gamechanger.la or pick6.la to pick up some shirts. And guess what? Use code AT412. Save yourself $10 on your order every single time. Again, gamechanger.la or pick6.la. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Check them out. So we'll see. Lars Eller and new addition to the team, Kevin Hayes, completing what we got down the middle. Where do you want to go next?
Assist is another one where I think there's a couple people in the conversation, and it has to do with either Sidney Crosby or a couple defensemen. I don't think there's any forward competing for the assist award. And so I think that I have to visually think about how many assists I think Crosby is going to get, because I have to think about how many points I think he's going to get as far as like goals and points together for me to answer this question, because I do think that there's an opportunity for Erik Karlsson to lead this team in assists.
Okay. Yep, that's my pick actually, is Erik Karlsson.
With him quarterbacking the power play more, so to speak, I think that he could lead this team in assists. If your pick is Erik Karlsson, I'll stick with Sidney Crosby, just because it's hard for me to go against Sid in these types of categories, or really in any category. It's hard to not pick Sidney Crosby. I just think that when I think about how many points I'm expecting him to have, he had 94 last year. I think that he could have another season where he's pushing 95 to 100 points in this season. When I think about how many goals I expect him to have, he's got to be up there in assists. The only way that I think that Karlsson beats him is if he has like 60 to 70 assists, and that would be awesome. But I would that's like more of a wait and see from him. But Sidney Crosby, he does it year in and year out. I'll pick Sid. So you're going to go with Erik Karlsson. What do you expect from him this season as far as like his production offensively?
Yeah, Erik Karlsson last year, 56 points, 11 goals, 45 assists. I think the goals honestly kind of stay within that same kind of vein. I was thinking like 12 to 15-ish goals from Erik Karlsson this year. I think the assist takes, all things considered, I'd say it's a relatively large jump to go to 60. I think he has 60 assists this year.
Okay.
And I think Sid falls just short of that. I think maybe I'm buying too much into this. And again, like I know I said, you got to see it to believe it when it comes to the power play. But this is a way for me to kind of go out. I couldn't go outside the box with the goals. I just didn't see a path there for somebody else. With the assists, I see it there because of getting David Quinn in here, because of hoping that, kind of revamp that power play. And look at what Erik Karlsson did the last time that he had David Quinn on a staff that he was playing for. So that's where I'm at with it.
That's true. I like that pick. I mean, that's the other guy that I would have been debating with myself if I think that Karlsson would beat him in assists or not. I don't know, but that leads me to total points. And if I have Sid leading in goals and assists, the vanilla answer, the easy answer, my guy, Sidney Crosby, I think that he's going to lead this team in points again. I think that he, at age 37, it's so impressive what he is doing still. There's no sign of him slowing down. And I just think that his drive to win fuels him more than almost any athlete I've ever seen to be the best at his ability. Even at his age, he could have a record-setting season this year if he gets up towards like 100 points. I'd have to fact check this, but I'm pretty sure if he had a similar season to what he did last season, he would be the highest scoring. Like I think if he got over 95 or 96 points, he would be the highest scoring 37-year-old ever in the National Hockey League. And I think that's very realistic for Sid, because of how this team is still set up. A lot of questions with the bottom six still about how good that's going to be, if it's improved at all. There's some new faces there, but I think that he'll have the continuity with Brian Rust once he gets healthy again, and having Drew O'Connor up there as a left wing. I really like that line. I think it's a really good line for Sid. Plus,
it's gonna be
what I mentioned,
Anthony Beauvillier start, it looks like.
Yeah. Anthony Beauvillier to start, but plus what I mentioned with the power play as well, and hoping that is improved. And we got to preface it anytime we mention it, like we got to wait and see and actually believe it to see it to believe it. Excuse me, but I think that it should be improved enough where he gets some more points off of that power play too. I think that he's going to lead this team again.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just did the math to see exactly where I have him at. Again, this is just like throwing a number out there, basically taking a shot here. I got about 94 points.
Yeah, so pretty much the exact same as what he did last season.
Is that what did he have 94?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's where I'm at. So, yeah, I think that I have, what did I put in here? 36 plus 58. So yeah, 36 goals, 58 assists, 94 points.
I like it. Let's see. Most points in their 37-year-old season. So Joe Sakic at age 37 scored 100 points. I don't know if Sid gets another 100-point season at 37 years old, that'd be awesome. But he could end up being high on this list because Johnny Busick from the Boston and back in the 70s, he scored 93, Lemieux 91, Gretzky 90. So he could be up there with those guys for sure in that possibility. Assuming he plays all 82 games. We've had some injury luck with Sid as well, with him playing full seasons too.
Yeah.
So that's helped.
That's what I was just saying. I'm looking at the stats here. How many guys do you think played all 82 games last year? How many Ironmen?
Well, I'm pretty sure the big three did it. I don't think that Letang, Malkin, or Sid missed a game. I'm pretty sure Carlson did it. As far as forwards go, I'm not entirely certain. I mean, I would assume there's probably at least one or two. I'll say 6 guys.
6. The ones you were missing were Lars Eller and Marcus Pettersson.
Man, I just know puck. Okay.
Apparently, yeah. That's crazy though. That kind of worries me, honestly, for this year.
You feel like there's a wall coming?
Yeah, I mean, it might be a stupid way to think about it. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to happen just because they were healthy last year, but like, it's kind of like the Steelers' offensive line, right? Like, they were healthy for like 2 straight seasons, didn't have a single injury, and then this year, 3 season-ending injuries. So
crazy.
Hopefully that's not coming the Penguins' way. But all right, what do we got next?
Do you want to do surprising player or disappointing player? Which one would you rather do first?
Let's do disappointing, so we're not like I know that that's not the last thing anyway, but let's just get the bad out of the way and go back to positive after that.
Okay. Do you want to go first on this one?
I've gone back and forth on a couple ways with this because you can't pick somebody that's bad, right? Or has been bad. Like, I can't say it's going to be Ryan Graves. It was disappointing last year. And I even was like, man, can I say Matt Grzelcyk? Because could he be a disappointing addition? Like, I don't know what people are necessarily expecting from him. So I feel like he can't really fall into that either. Could Tristan Jarry, with what he did in the first half of last season, was really good, but then the way he fell off the second half last year and then didn't even get the net back from the Delkovich at the end of last year. So that's kind of tough for me as well. And I want to preface by saying I don't necessarily think this player is going to be bad, but I think based off, and we've already mentioned him, based off what he did last year, there might be not a heightened expectation. I don't think he's going to do this again. It's Lars Eller for me. I don't think he scores 15 goals again. I don't think he gets, what did he have last year in terms of points? He had 15 goals, 16 assists, 31 points. I can maybe see him still being kind of in that range, but I don't think he's going to have the type of year that we just talked about. Like, I think him and Hayes may even swap by year's end.
Yeah.
Spots.
Yeah, I think that is a good prediction. I mean, at his age, you're kind of playing with house money at this point for how well he did. So if there is a drop off from last season, I could see it happening with him. As far as mine goes, it is tough to not gravitate towards some of the bad players on the team. And I feel like I'd even be doing myself a disservice if I said someone like Rickard Rakell, just because of what he.
I didn't mention him, but he's certainly fallen that.
Like, I don't think that I don't think that he is a bad hockey player overall, but up to what the expectations were with him, especially when we gave him the contract again, I feel like he just hasn't played up to it. He's not my pick though. I have a weird feeling, and I don't know why I have this weird feeling. I just have a weird feeling that we are going to get a not so great season from Chris Letang. I don't know what, I can't explain it. I don't have this is strictly going off of vibes, and maybe it's because I'm expecting such a good season in year 2 of Erik Karlsson, and maybe just that playing into my head. If Letang is far behind him offensively and has some of the defensive mishaps that he could have with the pairing, especially with Matt Grzelcyk as his pairing, we have no idea what that defensively is going to look like. I just feel like from what the expectations are with Letang being a big 3 player and who he is to this Penguins organization, maybe not necessarily statistically speaking, but just overall, I feel like it's going to be a down year for Chris Letang.
Okay. Like even like defensively, or you just think like the offensive?
Yeah, I think that we are going to have a lot of people chronicling, except in the bad way, where it's going to be a lot of complaining about what Chris Letang has been doing. And I feel like defensive mishaps are going to be happening. Like maybe it's just positioning, maybe it's pinching when you're not supposed to. And that will all combine to what I think will be a disappointing season overall for Chris Letang. And like I said, maybe it's just because I'm comparing for what he can be offensively to what I think that Erik Karlsson is going to be. And that's why I said, like, I don't think it's necessarily offensively disappointing, but overall, I think that we could be in for a defensively disappointing season from Chris Letang. And the pairing of Matt Grzelcyk doesn't make me feel any better about that either.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. I mean, I hope you're wrong. Obviously, I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, 100%.
Well,
I hope I'm wrong. Like I said, this is strictly off vibes. This is off the cuff gut check. This is who in my gut, that's who I felt like is going to have a disappointing season without just naming a bad player on the team.
Gotcha. All right, which takes us to the opposite end of the spectrum. Let's get back on the good vibes. Who's going to be the breakout player of this Penguins team?
I mean, for me, I think this is just a continuation of what we felt last year, what we saw last year. I really expect big things from Michael Bunting this year. A full season on the second line, a full season with, and can I count him as a breakout player based off what we saw last year? Like, if
for the Penguins, I think so. Yeah,
for the Penguins, I think that he's going to be a breakout player with a full season with Evgeny Malkin. You saw the chemistry that those two had is what we thought Riley Smith and Malkin were going to have, or what we thought Raquel and Malkin were going to have, is what we actually saw those two have. I feel like over an 82-game season, it's going to pay dividends. Having that type of player, too, that is a net front presence is something that we saw immediately from the Penguins last season after they traded Jake Gensel, is something that they lacked. And even if internally they didn't know they were lacking, or they did, and Kyle Dubas just made a smart trade, as fans, I feel like we didn't realize how much we lacked that net front presence until we saw Michael Bunting play and realized how good it is to have a player like that. I'm expecting big things from him. We mentioned last year that his goal pace was like 23 goals. I think that he could be pushing 30 this year, 30 plus with Malkin. I think that he gets a lot of those dirty goals in front of the net, and over a season, there's going to be a lot of those that happen. I feel really good about him as a player, and way better than I thought I did whenever the Penguins initially made that Jake Gensel trade and knew that we were getting Michael Bunting back. After seeing him in a Penguin uniform, seeing what he was able to do, I feel really good about saying that he's going to have a good season.
Yeah, absolutely. I was between two here, but that one has the much more obvious path. So I'll give you my honorable mention here. It's Valtteri Puustinen. I would love to see him carve out a permanent role in the Penguins' bottom six, and absolutely think he can do so. Heck, being that it's Anthony Beauvillier getting a shot on the top line before him, I would be playing Puustinen up there at first. I get it. Beauvillier might have a little bit more pedigree because he's been there and done that a little bit longer and had a little bit of success with the New York Islanders before completely falling off a cliff. But for me, I would have started a guy like Puustinen up there and seen the guy in the other wing for Sidney Crosby is where I'm going with this. I think it was a year early. I think this is the breakout year for Drew O'Connor. I'm going back to the well because I predicted this to happen last year. 16 goals, 17 assists last year. I mean, that's fine. 16 goals. I wouldn't consider that a breakout, though, because I think we're talking about 20 plus this year on Sid's left wing. So Drew O'Connor is going to be my breakout player for the Penguins. He's right around that age where like Brian Rust broke out and became a household name for the Penguins. So I think this is a massive year for Drew O'Connor, and nobody's set up for better success now because Jake's gone. He's on Sid's left wing, and at least to start the season, no Brian Rust on the right wing. So Sidney Crosby and Drew O'Connor is that duo right now.
I love it. I'm expecting big things from Doc. Now that he's full time on Sid's left wing, and we know that going into the season, I really expect a lot of chemistry to grow between those two. And whenever you get Rust back, that trio, I know Sullivan loves his duos, but I feel like just that trio is going to be reminiscent of what we saw whenever it was like Jake and Rust, or even going back a little bit and going to like Rust and Sherry as well with Sid. I feel like the Doc is a really good winger to have for Sid right now.
Yeah, I think that like the style that he plays, like his ability to chase the puck, his ability to transition, I think that's what Sid looks for in his wing. So I think it's gonna be a nice transition for him jumping up there. All right, and then the last thing we want to do is kind of go through the Metro division, see how we see the playoff teams shaking out from the Metro. It's going to be interesting. The Penguins, I think, are certainly going to be in the mix, but I'm curious to see where you have them falling here. So how do you think the Metro division shakes out?
I think the Metro is interesting because I think you have a few teams that have been at the top for a little while and are starting. Like, I don't think the Hurricanes are going to necessarily be bad, but I feel like there's reality coming for the Hurricanes. I feel like they bought in last season, traded for Jake Gensel, didn't end up working for them. The Devils are on the rise again. Rangers, this is like their last hurrah as far as people that are currently on contracts. They've got some big contracts coming up that they are hoping to get signed. So as far as their personnel that they have right now, it's like a last hurrah for them. Capitals were the most overrated playoff team in the history of the National Hockey League. They shouldn't have been a playoff team. I don't know how they got to a playoff spot last season, but they might be the worst playoff team I think I have ever seen. Flyers, they stink. So do the Blue Jackets. And I don't know how this is going to affect the Blue Jackets season, but like the emotional toll that the stuff with the Gaudreau brothers had on that franchise, I don't know if that's going to make them play harder or if that's going to hurt their franchise even more. Like, I think there's two sides of that coin. I'm just not sure where it's going to land with that franchise. So it's kind of like wait and see for them. But I think the Penguins are kind of fighting for that third, fourth spot in the Metro right now. I would still expect that the Rangers are going to be leading the Metro, at least on paper right now. And then I think that you're kind of competing with the Hurricanes, the Devils, the Capitals, and then you have the Penguins. And I know the Islanders in there too. I just think the Islanders aren't that good of a hockey team. I just think they're an annoying hockey team, quite frankly, because they score one goal and then just to play defense the entire game.
Yes, Sorokin's awesome, obviously, and I think that he carries a lot of weight for that franchise. I mean, it's like the Rangers are, I think, a little bit better overall of a team, but it's not that different of a situation where it's like they just rely so much.
The Rangers just have more star power in front of their goalie. Like they've got more high-end talent in front of their goalie.
But they're like equally as bad, if not worse, 5-on-5. Like they just special teams are very good, and they have Igor Shesterkin.
Right. So I think that they're going to be competing for the third, fourth spot in the Metro. I'd expect the Rangers to lead. I'd still predict the Carolina Hurricanes to finish second in that division. And then I think you're competing with the Devils for like that third spot. The Devils are one that I think could get the third spot, and which makes me scared because there's a chance that if you don't get the third spot in the Metro, you might not make the playoffs because there might be two Atlantic teams as the wild cards. Because looking at the Atlantic Division, like Florida just won the Cups. The Red Wings you were competing with last year for a playoff spot, they're still on the rise. The Lightning, Maple Leafs, Boston is still around. The Senators are getting better. I just think the
Sabres are getting better. I think the
Sabres are getting better. The entire Atlantic Division, you might have to get into that third spot in order to make a postseason. Do they get there? That's the question. I don't know if I think the Penguins are good enough to finish in the top three of the Metro. I think that they'll finish fourth in the Metropolitan Division. I think I put the Rangers, the Hurricanes, and the Devils above them. And then as far as if they make the playoffs or not, that's a bigger conversation to have. But before we get into that, where do you think they rank as far as just the Metropolitan Division goes?
Fourth. I have them, even if you want to carry that conversation over, I haven't made them the playoffs by a point. I said this on the Tip of the Iceberg podcast. I have the top of this a little bit different, though. I think the Devils win the division this year. I am very high on the Devils. I think there's more questions about what's going to happen in the in the postseason. I think Sheldon Keefe can certainly get them there. And then I think that's where the questions start for them. But I love their roster top to bottom. I think they finally got a goaltender as well. That's what they've been missing. I think that's kind of what they went all out for this offseason. So I got them at the top, and then I got the Hurricanes, then the Rangers at 3, then the Penguins at 4. Like you, I don't see it with the Islanders roster. I'm sure they're going to stick around, be past DB in the mix still, but you take away Sorokin from the conversation, and I think they're closer to the Flyers than they are the top of the division without Sorokin.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that there's a lot of mediocre rosters in the Metropolitan Division, especially when you compare it to the other division in the East. Like I just don't think that a lot of these rosters are very good in the Metro. So there's only a few teams you're competing with in your division. But when you just look at the Atlantic top to bottom, that's why I think it's so tough to make the playoffs this season. And it might be tougher than it has been in the last 2 seasons where they were just on the cusp of making the playoffs as well. If you don't capitalize on a lot more opportunities coming up this season, I just don't think it's going to cut it.
Smitty from around the 412 here. And while I may not have much hair, the hair that I do have will not be cut by anybody besides Keek at Keek's Barbershop. My friend Christian Circle, been with us since day one. Keek's Barbershop, located 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Download the app The Cut. Book an appointment with Christian today, or you can do walk-in with Tony or Ashley. But again, Keek's Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Go check them out. Old school vibe in there. Absolutely love it. Cannot recommend them enough. Wouldn't go anywhere else. Maybe I'll see you there.
Yeah, I just don't know that it's going to cut it if you are not capitalizing on a lot more of your opportunities. That's why I think that this upcoming season you need to get improved on the power play, because how many 1-goal games did the Penguins lose last season that if it gets flipped the other way, we're talking about getting overtime points, or we're talking about getting 2 points in regulations just because they could have scored a few power play goals. Plus, outside of the power play, I think that you have to rely on more scoring from your bottom 6. I don't think that you can continue just to rely on your top 2 lines. So you need more scoring out of that. And then you need your goaltenders to not implode on themselves. You need them to not hurt you more than they're helping you, which at times last season, they were hurting you more than they were helping you. And that's going to be something that can keep you out of a playoff spot for the 3rd year in a row. A lot of things have to go right for the Penguins. I do think that enough things will go right. And like you, I do think that they'll make the playoffs on a wild card spot. I think that they are improved. I'm not sure how much. It's kind of similar to how we entered the season last year. They're different, but are they better? We're not entirely sure. I do think that they are improved when I look at some of the players that they brought in. Like I think that you could do a lot worse than Kevin Hayes. And I think that you could do a lot worse than Cody Glass as far as bringing in players from your bottom 6. I like those players compared to what we had last year. I think that the addition of Rucker McGroarty, I'm very curious to see how that goes. I have high hopes that he's going to be a good player for this franchise for a long time. I think that the Penguins make the playoffs. I think they make it on a wild card spot. Like I said, I think they finish 4th in the Metro, make it on a wild card spot, and finally get the monkey off their back of being out of playoff contention for the last 2 seasons. And that can lead into what the conversation we've had whenever Sidney Crosby signed his contract, saw the numbers. This season was kind of set in stone as far as contract goes, but that leaves a lot of optimism for what they could do in 2025 and 2026 as far as the cap goes, who they could bring in, and what they could do to their roster to still try to get into cup contention. If they can make the playoffs with the current roster that they have, I think that could bring a lot of momentum going into the following seasons. But for this season itself, Pittsburgh is going to be back in the postseason.
Love it. Yeah, we didn't talk a lot about Rucker McGroarty, but how big of a piece could he be as well? How much impact did he make in terms of whether this team does take that step back into the playoffs?
He's helping bring that age average down. That's helping enough.
Exactly. Where are they the oldest down the middle at the very least? You'd have to
down
think,
the middle.
right?
They gotta be.
Yeah.
I mean, what? 37.
Hayes is the youngest.
38. 32 and 34.
Yeah.
There's no chance that anybody's older than that.
Yeah, I don't think so. All right. Anything else we wanted to discuss on here?
I don't think so. I'm curious to see if the Penguins are 1-0 or 0-1 after this discussion. But our predictions. We made it before they played the game. We just recorded it before the game.
Yeah. So don't hold it against us. But yeah, there will have already been a game played by the time you guys are watching or listening to this. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here. If you are on YouTube, hit us in the comments with your thoughts on how the Penguins season is going to go, your predictions for anything that we talked about, as well as questions for a future episode. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, just search Around the 412. Leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there. And then you can find us on all social media platforms at Around the 412 as well. And wherever you found us, regardless of where it was, check out the description. There's a link for year 7, rocking around the 412. Every single penny donated to our yearly Christmas mission goes to providing Christmas in the 724 and 412 areas with the Christmas they wouldn't otherwise have. So we're excited to do that every single year. Tyler and I never had to worry about where Christmas was coming from growing up. This is our way of giving back. In the last 3 years, we started partnering up with the East Rochester Salvation Army to adopt kids off their angel tree. If you want to be involved in that portion of the mission, you got to get that done by December 9th. That's when everything's got to be back to the East Rochester Salvation Army. So if you want to take a tag yourself, make sure everything's delivered either to myself or over at the East Rochester Salvation Army by December 9th. The link is in the description. Read the full mission there, as well as donate right there. Please share it at the very least. You never know whose eyes and ears we can get on this thing. And then the description is also chock full of other links as well, because of all of our sponsors, our great sponsors that we talked about: Game Changers, Teach Barbershop, Everything Custom Designs, and then our DC4L custom shorts as well down there. I think that's it. Right, Tyler?
Yep. Let's go Pens.
Let's go Pens. Without further ado, for Tyler, for Smitty, this has been the Around the 412 Pen Show. We'll talk to you next time.